This is the Education Business Podcast for consultants and business owners providing services in schools. I'm Claire Riley, and I'll be sharing how to start, grow and scale your education business. Hi everyone, thank you so much for listening to the Education Business Podcast. If you have listened before and you've enjoyed it and you've come back, I would love it if you could just leave a review at the place where you are listening. That would really help the show get out to more people. Please do this because I haven't had a review for quite a long time now because I never really ask for reviews. So I'm taking that opportunity to ask for a small favour in return for all of the content that you get. So it would be great, please, if you could just give me a recent review. That would be amazing and I would be extremely grateful. Thank you. Right, straight into the episode. We're going to talk about having a baby and running your business. Now, when I say having a baby, you don't have to physically have the baby. You could be the other parent who is parenting. And I think that's pretty relevant because myself and Ed, we have a relationship where one of us is not the main parent and we're doing it very much between us. And I know that you might be in that situation as well, even if you have not physically given birth to your baby. And I wanted to talk about this because I have been speaking to a number of people about it recently. And then I got a message a few days ago saying it'd be great if I could do a podcast episode on it. And I thought, I've never thought of that before. But yeah, it is a good idea. So thank you to that person for suggesting it. And then all of a sudden I ended up talking about it even more with different people who came into my life last week. So it seemed like the right thing to do. So just to set the picture of how I know about this experience, we started Classroom Secrets in 2013. We were already having fertility issues by then. We already knew there was an issue. So in some ways you could say that's probably why I held the business back for the first couple of years, because I was worried maybe I'd end up having a baby. But anyway, in other senses, it was a good distraction to keep pushing forward. So when we had a baby in 2016, it's not like we'd not had plenty of notice. We did have plenty of notice, and we'd actually been through the IVF process, so it had been going on for over a year by the time she came. And then our second baby came 2 years later. That was a bit of a surprise in completely different circumstances. So I can talk from those two perspectives. And also the business was very different with both of those pregnancies, even though they were only 2 years apart, because we'd grown it so fast. So I'm just going to share 4 things with you today. I know that there is so much I could say about this. I am actually going to create content in Education Business Club. I'm going to go into more detail because I've realised there's so much I can share that will be helpful. And also it's not just about having a baby, it's about having young children as well. So I'm going to create content on that in the club. Because not only do I have young children, but I also had to go through having the children at home while running a business when they were really young through COVID. And there were a lot of lessons there, a lot of things that we can talk about. So what's my advice for you then? The first thing is that you need to prepare as much as you can. You've probably been thinking about this, but I did not prepare as much as I should have. I realised that I needed to get somebody to do the work I was doing. You're probably going to need people to come into your business. This can be the push for many people of having to get somebody in to do something. And that can be hard if you've not had anyone before, because then you've got the headache of navigating what it's like to be a manager, for example. So the earlier you can start preparing, the better. Don't leave it to the last 3 months. How it happened for us is I actually took somebody on thinking that they would proofread before I actually had the implantation. So I was thinking ahead, but it turns out that they were not suitable for the role really, and I ended up having them fulfill a different role. And then somebody else offered to join the company and I thought maybe they could do that role. They joined the company, but they also were not able to fulfill that role. And so finally I employed somebody on only a few hours a week because that's what they could fulfill. And they ended up starting not very long before I had the baby, a month early. So that was in itself a little bit of a nightmare. Don't leave it to the last minute. Now, I was clueless about employing people, really. You can be more clued up because I can teach you those things. I can teach you all of the mistakes to not make when you first employ people, but it's never going to be perfect. But use the time to really try and think about how you can prepare, and know that you're never going to prepare as much as you need to, because you're not going to know what that is. From here on in, there's never going to be a good time to do things in your business because you have other responsibilities in your life now. So you have to find ways to prepare and work through it instead. So as part of that preparation then, the next thing I would say is to get realistic about what your work will actually look like in fewer hours. So if you're devoting all of your time to your business right now, if you're working 50-hour weeks, I certainly was before I got pregnant, then you're going to have to rethink things. I would look through all of the things that I do and work out what's actually important. Because we can have things on our to-do list, especially when we don't really have any outside commitments, and we just do them because they're on the to-do list. This is a really good way of weeding out some of the little things that don't need to be done. And also, within that realism, when you're looking at what's possible to be done, think about, for example, how many hours you think you are going to work and when are you going to do those hours. But be realistic about the business. This is where, depending on your circumstances, there can be a gender gap. And unfortunately, we need to have a little bit of realism around what is actually possible to do in our businesses. I'm sure you'll see people say, oh, I had a baby and I still grew my business 300%. And I think those people are rare cases. I think having a family can really slow you down. And it's just accepting and realizing that that is part of the process and being okay with that and knowing that it's not forever. The third thing is you need to accept that your maternity isn't going to be a maternity like non-business owners get. People can say all these things to you about how it's time to bond with your baby, and it absolutely is. And your accountant will tell you you can't do anything, which is true, you can't do anything. But you also have to take on the responsibilities of being a director. You can't let that slip either. You have responsibilities as a director of a company. But it isn't going to be a maternity like it would be if you were employed. And I actually felt quite sad about that in some ways. I felt a little bit robbed. And how your maternity ends up panning out can depend on the preparation that you've done beforehand and who you've got around to help you. But it isn't going to be the same. You are going to be thinking about the business. You are going to have that at the back of your mind. And so the best thing we can do is accept that that's okay and it's normal, and not expect something different, because it's when we expect something that we don't get that we experience the sadness or the discontentment. People who expect less are generally happier people. And the fourth thing is that you're going to understand the person you really are, and that's probably a good thing. I never thought that I would be an earth mother, but I was surprised at how much I still wanted to work on the business when my first baby was born. I thought that I would really kind of tap into motherhood. And it's not that I didn't, but I still was thinking about the business all of the time, because that was also a baby that I cared about. So I would be thinking about how to grow the business. I didn't let it go. I kept abreast of everything that was going on. I didn't switch off. And maybe you'll have the plans in place for that to happen. We've all got different businesses, and it depends on your particular business as to whether that's going to be possible for you. But I came to understand very quickly that I was not the mother that I thought that I was going to be. And I had to very quickly become okay with that. And even as time's gone on, sometimes you can feel guilt around that, because I am a mother who likes to work, who likes to be thinking about my businesses. It's who I am. I'm neurodiverse. It's okay. And it's likely that my children are going to experience something similar as they grow up and become adults as well. And so at least I'll be able to understand them. So I feel that those pieces of advice that I've given you today are probably more of a reality check than perhaps you were hoping for. I don't think we talk about this enough, really, about what it's really like to run a business and have a baby. We think, oh, well, you set this business up and then it runs without you. And if you've done it properly, that's how it works. And it's not the reality at all. Even if you've grown a business, I can guarantee those business owners will still be thinking about work. They will be doing work. They will be thinking up new ideas. They will be checking how things are going. We can see on social media that they're having this amazing maternity leave. I just do not believe that that is the reality. I've also spoken to entrepreneurs as well who have confirmed it. Sometimes what we say to the outside world is not what's really going on. So give yourself a break. It's a really amazing and important life experience, but it is going to cause chaos. It might cause a bit of turmoil. It might feel like a little explosion. It might feel like they're colliding. It's all normal. You can get through it. If this has really stirred up some feelings inside and you feel like you need to talk about it, then just reach out to me on Instagram at Claire Riley Teacher Entrepreneur or at Education Business Club. But it's a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing to balance, and most people won't understand, but you can do it. Perhaps you've got no choice now anyway, and it gets easier as time goes on. You'll find your own rhythms, you'll find your own patterns, and that will help you get used to the new normal and a new way of working. So I hope this episode has been helpful. Don't forget to leave me that review if you haven't done already. I would really appreciate it. And I will see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to the Education Business Podcast. To get more information to grow your business, sign up at educationbusinessclub.co.uk.